name is Kyle Dilday, and I will be the moderator of today's discussion of Springmoor as we go from an idea to one of today's premier life care retirement communities. I served as the administrator of Springmoor Stewart Health Center and as Springmoor's executive director, and have been associated with Springmoor and these fine people since early 1987. Joining me today are, to my left, Justice and Joellen Ammons, Springmoor developers and builders, and on my right, Mason Williams, Vice President of Ammons Incorporated, and Marshall Evans, Springmoor's Executive Director during the development and early years of Springmoor. Marshall and his wife Frances are now residents of Springmoor. This group of participants was Springmoor's development team. In this discussion, I will ask each of you questions to guide our conversation, but please feel free to add as you see necessary so that we can get significant points from you. So let's begin our discussion with a question to you, Judd. Share with us what got you thinking about developing a life care community here in Raleigh.
Well, you're never sure what happens, you know. You dream of doing something, this and that, and then something else happens. You have some friends that talk to you and want to do something. And so about that time, I had a grandmother that was being sick, and she had some real tough experiences with life care communities. And then we had a group in Raleigh formed that wanted me to build for them some, and we found out you couldn't build everybody what they wanted. You had to sort of figure out what they wanted and have like a focus group and figure out what they wanted and just build it and then let them have it. So that's sort of what we did. We started out, we were going to call it the Heritage, if you remember, to start with.
That's right.
We made it up, and this is a big thing here, how great we was going to be being the Heritage. And we found out one had flunked here one time, and we didn't want to flunk again, so we decided we'd change the name of ours. And so we started talking to a lot of people, the group that wanted to build here some, and people down at the church and other groups. About that time, I already had Mason right here. Mason was my boss, and he ran a building company. Of course, Mom was a real boss. And then we had Marshall, and we decided to go on a trip one time. Me and Marshall riding down the road over Tennessee somewhere, and I said, I can build one if you can run. He said, I don't run anything. Oh, well, God's sake. So that's okay then. We'll try. So that's kind of how we got started. What about that simple, Marshall?
It was about that simple, Judd.
What real big deal was it? But then once we decided what we were going to do, because I've never known anything, I didn't think I could build better than anybody else, so I didn't have a problem. I mean, well, I don't care if you don't like that, that's okay. But still, we know how to build things, and we really wanted it. And, you know, as it's turned out, I'm sure every one of us here would agree. First, we're great to be together again because we don't see each other all every day like we did then for a long time. But I think the main thing that we've learned is how much we enjoy doing it. I don't know anybody here that wouldn't do it all over again. Maybe twice or whatever it took, you know. I mean, it was just a lot of fun. And then you start meeting the people that come as they come, and you learn so much from them and love them so much. It's been a very happy experience. So once we decided to build, we just started talking to people, getting some plans together. And then I remember we had a little meeting to see if anybody was interested. We thought we'd have 20 or 30, then we thought we'd have 75, then we thought we'd have 100, so we invited 200 or something. We had 300 or 400 there, best I remember, wasn't it, Marshall?
The mailing list was gradually developed. We wanted to keep a low profile because several other efforts had been tried and failed. And by the time we got ready to tell people about Springmoor, Sylvia had developed, your secretary had developed a list of 400 or 500 people. We invited them to the Marriott Hotel for a presentation luncheon. We weren't at all sure how many came for a free lunch and how many were really interested. But anyway, 400 or 500 people showed up.
And we remember they didn't like it. We didn't have nowhere for them to sign. They were ready to come.
And yeah,
we were over talking about if we were going to do it. No, here they were, ready to go.
That day, as a matter of fact, one lady sided up to me and handed me $200, which is application fee, and said, I want to get on the wagon. And she later came and lived a number of years here.
Okay. But the development of this size must involve a lot of institutional financing. How did you arrange for financing? And because we know at the time you started thinking about Springmoor, there were several other efforts here in Raleigh that had failed, and so your idea must have been viewed somewhat risky.
Well, anybody you talk to was risky because most people, you talk to a bank, they never had a good dream in their life. They just know how many pages you sign. And so it was kind of tough from the start, trying to convince people we knew how to build one and try to convince people that we were going to build it and finish and it would work. And we visited some others. Well, it wasn't many to visit. We visited one in Virginia and about it. And we decided we knew how to do it. I mean, nobody here was scared. So we started, me and Marshall visited, I guess, 7 or 8 banks that turned us down to start with in the Marshall.
That's right.
Finally, we got going and found 1 or 2 banks with a little bit of interest. And then we had a few problems with the financing to start with because not problems getting the money as much as it was we wanted people's money to be safe. We didn't want to have a first mortgage on the place for the bank. We didn't want the bank foreclosing on what we'd built. And so the bank, that's not the way they normally do business. So we had quite a few discussions about how to do that, didn't we, Marshall?
Well, I remember one, Judd. It was unique to me, and this is 30 years later, but it's crystal clear in my mind. We were talking to Northwestern Bank, and the president of the bank, the president of the mortgage company came. It was a new experience to me because we were discussing a loan of millions of dollars with the bankers at Judd's dining room table in his home, along with Jim C. And we talked along, and things were going well until the head of the mortgage company said out of the blue, now, of course, you'll need to subordinate the rights of the residents to the rights of the bank. And I remember distinctly Judd's answer, and I thought, this is the end of this. We ain't going to do that. If they ain't going to do that, you can go to hell and get out of here now. And I figured, oh, that's the end of that. And that day to this, I've never heard subordinating rights of the residents again from anyone.
So, Judd, do you think that is what caused the bank to not require to be first position in the event of any financial troubles?
Well, I think we had to bank some. We can't just do whatever you want to do, but we had to convince them that. But I had to sign personal, sign my house, my car, and I had, they wanted to make sure they had some collateral, and I had to have collateral pretty much other than Springmoor collateral, Florida, because it's in a second place. And so then we just sort of started, and it kind of boomeranged, and from then on, wasn't much problem. I mean, everybody in town was our friend all of a sudden.
When you were deciding the organization and the ownership, why did you decide for Springmoor to be a 501c3 nonprofit instead of a for-profit community?
Well, I just think, man, Marshall knows a lot about that, based on your mom. Some people, for-profit is a bad word. So, and then some of the others, 1 or 2, the few that people knew anything about at all, wasn't here, but all some of our friends. A lot of them are non-profit, where they were, And we decided that if we wanted to be non-profit, we didn't want people to think that we didn't mean to make any money. Because we didn't want to be non-profit, does not always mean non-profit. So we decided we would build it, own the buildings and grounds and stuff, and then we'd lease that to the non-profit. And that way we could have some control over building the buildings, doing other stuff, and the non-profit, of course, would be a separate board from us, and they'd kind of run things the way they wanted to, but we made an agreement with them to start with it. We would manage it for them and do some things, did with Marshall. And
another big reason for it being nonprofit, in this life we plan much of it around insurance and taxation. Had it been for-profit, the entry fee for residents would have been much larger because it would have to have covered income tax, federal and state income tax. By making it nonprofit, we had lower fees for the residents, as well as all the advantages that Judge just mentioned.
Well, and also, when Springmoor was built, most other life care communities were church affiliated. Why did you consider, or did you consider Springmoor being church affiliated, and why did you decide against it?
Well, I've never personally known anything a church could run very well, and I don't mean that bad. I mean, they're just not made to run places, are they, Marshall? I mean, they get deacons. What deacons are going to be trustees? I mean, a church is in the business to save souls, and they're not in the business, seems like, to run businesses. And I don't think the record of what they've done is too great, although we wanted to be very much I guess we want to be church related in the sense that we wanted to act like we'd been to church and nice place and take care of people and it's a Christian community. So we pressed all those things. We thought we had a better way of running it, and we'd get us a board, an advisory board, as you remember, and we thought they'd be better managers.
In addition to that, a lot of people have the impression that when a retirement community is church-related, that the church is financially undergirding it. We didn't want to mislead people into believing that any church was undergirding this effort, because it's a false impression.
And I would assume people may not move here because they may think they have to be of that denomination in order to move.
I suppose that could have been a factor, I don't know.
Joe, why don't you tell us a little about the steps you took to assure the financial stability of Springmoor during development, after development, and for future residents?
Well, I don't remember every little thing we did, but first you got to convince somebody that you're going to pay them back. You know, people like to get paid back. And I think we convinced the bank we'd pay them back. And we made up several charts, whatever they were you call them some kind of tables, to show sort of how we was going to pay them back, try to stick to that something. Marshall, like financial statements and some things. But the biggest thing they really wanted, I think, was to make sure that we had the financial ability to carry it for a while if things didn't go as good as we thought they'd be, and we proved to them we had the ability to do that. And so once they started liking that, I think it just sort of evolved real fast. I don't remember having many more problems after we got started. Do you, Marshall?
No, it worked pretty smoothly. We did all the budgeting and estimating and projecting costs, and all that worked fairly well. And
Yeah, it did.
Yeah.
How about the financial stability for the future of Springmoor, future residents?
Well,
Have you
we've
protected
done several.
that?
Well, we've done several things, but one of the biggest things is if we either manage it or if we lease buildings to them and all, we've got a way of we collect the rent or do whatever you want to call different things, but we also don't make them pay if they don't have the money to pay. We don't. It's not like a tenant. We don't eject them if they're running low on paying. We agree to write that off, and so every few months, anything they hadn't paid, we write it off to them, Marshall.
What we did is made an agreement with the board of directors that if the board of directors could not meet the lease payments, that they could be deferred in part to protect the cash flow of Springmoor, and they would remain deferred for up to a year. If after a year they had not been paid, they would be forgiven. And I think that as of this date, the owners of the buildings have forgiven something like $25 million in rents. The stability of Springmoor has been secured by that and will be secure in the future. One of the highlights that Judd placed on this from the very beginning of our discussions was that we're going to do this in a way that the people who live there are not at risk, and that has been accomplished over these 25 to 30 years.
I think it's still that way.
Yes, and will be in the future.
Yes, I think that's right.
Joe and Joellen, tell us a little bit about the considerations that went into selecting the initial board members.
Well, I think we needed people that we could trust and that would trust us and that would cover all phases of the population. We wanted people that knew about different areas and you know more about
Well,
that.
we really wanted the board didn't come to eat tea and crumpets, and drink tea and eat crumpets and hang out. We want people to help us. And I think that's what we started getting on the board and the advisory board. We thought the advisory board, we took it very serious. I did. I remember going to ask Governor Moore, well, it had been the governor, if he'd be on an advisory board. I remember he asked me, he said, well, young fella, that was a long time ago, said, well, young fella, said, why you want me on the board? Said, people want me on boards all the time. Why would you be any different? I said, because we need you. We need somebody on there. We need credibility. You give us a lot of credibility. You don't have to do much of the work, but we need you to like what we do and help us. And he took that very serious too, I thought, didn't you?
Yes, he did.
And we had a nice advisory board. We had people that could offer some advice and some help. And then, too, as you know, you want people that are known in the community to help you market as your time goes on and those other people. And we give you a good reputation. That's what we got.
So we had a board of directors and an advisory board, and the
Yes.
advisory board
Yeah.
served in the basic
Yeah.
purpose of trying to help market it in the community. Is that why you selected those people primarily on the advisory board?
No, I think the only reason we selected was we wanted their help and their advice. But I think the second thing we probably had picked was people who could help us in the community, give us credibility. They didn't have to go out and do the selling. We want people to say, I know the preacher and he used to be at my church. I knew him, he did that. On the board we had Ivy Clayton, who's head of the North Carolina Revenue Department, and Jim C., who had been part of the first group that was going to try to start one when it was called the Heritage and different stuff. And no, we want people to help us, and I think we still have a board that tries to help.
We also had on the, the initial board a lady who had really been a positive influence in selling Springmoor's idea to the community, Mary Louise Stewart. And she was telling, by and large, people about what a wonderful thing this would be. And she was a very valuable member of the initial board.
She's past that. She
Yes.
walked on water as far as I'm concerned. I don't know how you'd ever meet a nicer lady in the world. We named the building over here after her, but people think we named it after her husband. We didn't. We named it after her. But she did have a husband. But I thought she was very, I remember when she was sick and couldn't hardly raise up her head. She told me, handed me a list, her mama, a list of 47 or 8 people that were ready to come. And she sort of apologized for not having more members on the list. And said she felt better, she'd get some more.
Remarkable lady.
Yeah, yes, very, very much so.
Judd, everyone admires the beauty of Springmoor and the grounds, the design and the placement of all the buildings on the property. Tell us about the process of selecting Jimmy Edwards as the architect and Jerry Turner as a land planner and assisting you and Mason in creating the beautiful campus that we have today.
Well, I knew them both, and they're nice people, and they do a good job. I knew we could keep them halfway straight because we knew sort of what we wanted to start with. We needed to work with somebody that could refine and help and make our plans even better, but we sort of knew what we wanted to start with. Basically knew how to build a building. Marshall looked at some. He knew you wanted a health center where you came in the front door instead of the back door. I mean, we knew the things we wanted to do with Marshall.
That's right.
I mean, it wasn't like we were starting over from scratch. But I couldn't say enough about what I think they both did well. I think the reason Springmoor looks so pretty now is because after 25 years or whatever it's been, it looks better than it did to start with. The brick arches and that kind of building ages very well, and it's aging very, very well. Matter of fact, a lot of it is getting prettier all the time. And the grounds are very pretty. Mason thinks he knows a lot about grounds. I think I did, Mama did, we did. But we wanted it to look like we wanted it to look. And I remember we had 2 big things that we believed in from the very start. We were going to make it pretty, or that was it, no, period. We were going to make it pretty. And we were going to make it for people that needed it. We weren't going to kick out people until they couldn't come and this because it didn't fit the mode of what we wanted to come. We wanted people to come that needed to be here. And I think we've lived up to that through the years. We've made sure that people that needed to come had an opportunity some way to come.
Good. Mason, you managed the process of making Springmoor a reality during the building stages and making it work. Share with us some of the challenges and difficulties that you experienced when you were overseeing the construction of Springmoor.
Well, the biggest challenge would be the fact that the program was being created at the same time the buildings were being designed. So there was constant redesign and reworking to make sure the buildings fit exactly what Marshall and Judd and Joe Ellen and the team were envisioning as what needed to operate inside of them. And it was a big, varied site with lots of different kinds of uses on it that were all connected. So the major problem, I'd say, if there was a problem, was that flow of information. We would be building the buildings while they were still being designed. So there was a lot of close coordination with the architectural team and all the engineers and the subcontractors and providers. That orchestration was a lot of fun. It was a challenge. I don't really look at it as a problem, but it was very time consuming. I can remember being over here at 2 o'clock in the morning when Marshall was in his office writing the program and we were on the roof trying to keep the rain from coming through.
I think one thing that made me proud of the place a lot from the very start, it fits where it is. Some people think the buildings are built a little bit this way, that way, crooked. That's so it fit the topo. We didn't have to grade and tear up the place. You can't make a pretty place if you tear up what was here to start with. We had a pretty place to start with without nothing on it. we wanted, after we finished, it looked like we didn't tear up what we should have started with. And I think it still looks like that. I'm very, I guess, I don't know anything we're much prouder of than that, you know?
That's the truth, and it was fit beautifully. In fact, I remember when you brought, I think it was Mr. Davidson over here.
Yes.
And we were just in the first phases. We cleared the site and we're building the buildings in the back, main apartment buildings, pretty well underway. As I recall, you drove him across the front of the site and he looked around and said, "Well, you're not doing anything here. What's going on?" And that was because it fit the site so well. The big buildings didn't impose on the housing and the smaller buildings, and it just worked well. To me, that was the affirmation that we were doing it right.
Good. Well, you mentioned phases a second ago. Mason, walk us through the various phases of construction and the approximate time frame, if you can remember, for kind of how long it took to complete those phases, and maybe even when the first resident moved in.
Well, we started in late '82, I guess, with initial work, and the first phase was the east apartments and the main administrative section. And that they occupied in late '83, didn't they? Our first residents moved in.
'84.
That's when it really became.
And some in '85.
Yep, on into South Village in '86.
Yeah.
So it continued, and then we worked up through the health center and did the initial phase of the health center. And after everything was open, we came back and did the second phase of the health center. And then, of course, I guess it was '93 or '4, we came back and did the Clayton wing. So
'98 when we moved in, I believe.
We finished it then.
Yeah.
So it's been a long, ongoing development process.
So you went
for all
from
of us.
the administration building and health center. Tell me about east and west apartments and South Village, how that, and the houses and villas, how they fit in.
Well, the houses and villas were coming along with the east apartments, and some of the villas opened about that same time, and then we just worked our way through the houses as we were doing the west apartments, and wrapped up the health center, pretty much all of the north campus before the south campus started. That started in probably late '85.
Yeah, that's about right.
And took about 2 years to carry through to 100%. We finished them up in late '86 and fully occupied probably early '87. So,
If I remember, Mason, I think you remember, I'm proud of a lot of things that happened. I mean, I really do. I mean, I think we all put our heart and soul into it. We ought to be proud of it. If we did, we wouldn't build it. But I remember we had to be a kind of building that was could meet the handicap codes and a lot of other things, fire inspections and all these. But we wanted it to be. We found that so many things made to meet all those codes were made for commercial buildings. We didn't want commercial buildings. We wanted to be people's home. People didn't want to live in an office building. They didn't want to live like they lived at home. And we wanted our stuff to look like it was a home. But I remember the trouble we had putting up crown molding. You remember that with the fire inspector. And just a lot of things. Buying doors and fire doors. I remember the first doors we bought, what was it, $510. We bought them from Lowe's Company. We bought 440 one day, I believe. And we bought them for $85. It'd be the same thing that those made, you know. We were cabinets, other things. Don't you remember?
all that.
Oh, it was a very, very special time, I thought.
Mason, I know during construction, there were some residents were calling Springmoor home during some of the construction you were doing, even if it was just South Village. But during the process, I know that had to be difficult. Tell us about some of the challenges you had in providing what you were trying to do while residents were trying to call this home.
Well, that was a lot of fun. But we enjoyed meeting the residents. Actually, they were very excited and cooperative about all the activities that were occurring, all it took to continue to build and finish the project. And they were eager to move in. That was one of the challenges. Marshall and Judd had lots of people that were ready to move, and meeting their move-in dates with the varied challenging design build program that was going on definitely was a challenge. But I really didn't have a problem. I didn't consider the coordination around the residents that were there ever to be a problem, really. It was just working with them, keeping them informed, and them informed about what we were doing. They were very interested. They would come to the construction fence regularly and enjoy looking at what was going on and comment on whether we knew what we were doing or not. But it was a very fun time. I did enjoy that, and the residents were wonderful and understood the problems of tying things together.
Well, we made it neat. We had to get a caterer and give a place to eat before we got the dining hall finished.
Well, when the first residents moved in, we had finished only one section of East Apartments, had finished some of the houses and villas. So we basically had people living in East Apartments while the further section of East Apartments was still under construction.
Right.
As Judd points out, we had to, we made a contract with Baxley Caterers, and they provided the evening meal in the lobby of the East Apartments. Our health center was in what is now the guest rooms in the East Apartments. And I remember when the first residents moved into the houses, the streets were still muddy. They hadn't been paved, and we were operating an office out of two of the office and a display room in two of the houses. So it was a bit of a challenge running the life care community in the midst of a construction site, but the cooperation was tremendous and it worked reasonably well.
You know, and I remember you remember Reuben Crabtree. Now Reuben, he was kind of an odd, tough guy, but he kept up with his business, didn't he, Mason?
He did good.
He didn't know, man. He made him a chart of what you're going to do today, tomorrow, next day, and you're going to get the footings in, you're going to get the walls up, and you're going to beat these challenges. And then we hired somebody to Mason found somebody to help him, David Samuels. You remember? He was a lot of help to us, wasn't he?
It was great help.
Yeah, I think he was just he really helped us a bunch. But I remember the biggest challenge we had about that time, we wasn't sure market. We had a lot of pent-up demand, then it kind of looked like, where's the rest of them coming from, you know? And we hired this guru place. You know, I already didn't like it, but I guess if I ever had a reason to decide I didn't want another consultant ever, they proved that to be, didn't you, May?
Yep.
And they came from up in yonder around Washington, Alexander, wasn't it?
I believe it was.
Yeah. And, well, I guess we had a 6 months contract. We fired him after 2, didn't we? And David was getting out of college. And I said, David, can you sell anything? And he said, that's my son. You know David, the funny one. And I said, did you learn anything while you were in college? Yeah. I said, you learned how to sell? Well, he had some marketing courses, and he wanted to do some things different than we did. And I think that helped us get started, too. He marketed up a bunch that time, didn't he? I mean,
he really did. He was in charge of marketing at that point.
Yeah, and so we had a lot of people. People wanted to help us, and the people that worked here wanted to help the people that lived here. I used to say, I don't know how many people we had working here that I always thought half of them would probably work here if we didn't pay them. They just liked it here. I mean, and so.
And still do. The staff and staff enthusiasm today is very great. They consider it an honor to be of service and help to the folks who live here.
Yeah, I think the most steady thing we have is Mom, Joella, my wife, because she still comes over here and helps them decorate and helps them move pictures around and still sees a lot of the residents and talks to them. And you might have had that down for another time. But okay, that's okay. We'll wait till the other time. But I think that still helps us have some continuity of the start to what we're doing now.
Well, now y'all obviously initially didn't know anything about life care communities. You didn't know what they were or whatever. How did you learn? How did all of you, how did you learn anything about life care communities to know what to build and how to begin and the programs to start?
Well, Marshall wasn't dumb. I mean, he came in here and he already knew a lot about health care and stuff like that. We knew how to build a building, and Jim Evers helped us some, and we visited some places.
We visited some places, and we did a lot of studying of literature. One of the biggest helps we had was the person who was administrator of a retirement community in Richmond, and he gave us the benefit of all his things that didn't work. And Joellen and I visited there a number of times.
Had a flat tire on the interstate.
And ruined your rim of your car and all of that.
I remember that.
Dr. Sims is that.
Yeah, Dr. Sims. And he later, the administrator there, when he retired, later came here to be our interim nursing home administrator for Springmoor. But he shared with us a great deal. Our research provided a lot of information. The one area where we probably were misled by everything we could learn was the size of the health center. Everything suggested that for a community of this size, the number of residents, the number of apartments, that a 100-bed health center would do the job. we learned very shortly that it was inadequate, and so it wasn't long before we added more beds. And then at a later stage,
added more beds.
Then we decided we need to expand the scope of our service to include those with various forms of dementia and mental difficulties, Alzheimer's and the like. So we added a area specializing in that. And then later, the Clayton wing, which would provide a different kind of care altogether.
And I think today, nothing helps us more than having the facility of the nursing home. I remember Marshall said, we'll be successful as long as it don't smell like a nursing home. So we put a lot of emphasis on keeping a clean, nice place. As you know, you ran it for a while, Mason, but we took that serious business. We expect employees help clean it up and stuff. You remember that?
Oh, yeah. There were times early on when we actually had the administrative staff provide janitorial services to keep the nursing home at the level we wanted it. The other thing we did in planning the scope of care of Springmoor was to have an outpatient clinic that would have nurses and doctors and provide local care, hands-on care to those people who chose to use it. The residents who live here still have the option of using the doctor of their choice. But if they want to use them, we have physicians, we have specialists here, and a major, major advantage of the Springmoor plan is if you're in the nursing home, if you're in Stewart Health Center, doctors will see you there. In the industry in general, doctors don't go to nursing homes. The patient, however ill, has to get to the doctor. Here, the doctor gets to the patient, and that's an invaluable asset.
Well, when we named it continuing care, we want it to be what it said.
Yeah. Then
We didn't want people to have to move across the street and up and down the road to get the care they needed, right?
That's right. And the other thing that we provided that's very unique here is people live independently in an apartment in other retirement communities, or they lay in a bed in a nursing home. We felt that there was another level of fostering independence as long as possible, and that is we developed the supportive living center when a person needs some help but is still able to live somewhat independently. They can move there, they have help with the medications and dressing and so on, and still fostering independence rather than either you live in an apartment or house or you lay in a bed in a nursing home. And that's unique to Springmoor. It was unique then, it's still unique to Springmoor.
Let me ask you a question, Marshall, if I can. A certificate of need is necessary in order to build the skilled nursing beds for Stewart Health Center. We know that. At the time Springmoor was built, there was generally an opposition to the industry of continuing care by the nursing home industry because
this is going to be a lot of fun.
they figured that continuing care was taking their patients from them. And we know the governmental agency wasn't always willing to issue certificates of need. How were you able to succeed in getting a certificate of need to build a nursing home?
Well, in Springmoor's case, it was a long, drawn-out process of climbing the cliff of bureaucracy. And the governmental agency was very, very reluctant to issue certificates of needs, and they were coveted. Everyone was trying to get us to hospitals, other entrepreneurs, and so on. We got to a point, we thought we were making great progress with the bureaucracy, when all of a sudden the roof was pulled out from under us. They suddenly went against everything we wanted to do and disapproved it. And Judd went to visit one of the top people in the
top man.
The top man.
I remember that.
In the governmental agency, and they had a sort of a frank discussion.
I put a chair up against the door where he couldn't leave.
And
before I leave this office, we were going to have our place open.
And he described all the process we'd gone through. We'd try to comply with all of this, only to have it reversed.
Really tried hard.
And I can probably quote the man's letter. He wrote a letter, said, "The certificate of need is approved in the interest of equity."
He was a nice man.
And it was done. So I thought we had it going. It collapsed. Judd saved it with the chair on the door.
Well, I didn't explain to him. They weren't going to make a liar out of me. I'd make a liar out of him. I mean, we'd done what we were supposed to do, and that was the end of that crap. I mean, I was ready. I mean, we owed it to the people here. If you make a promise or either present yourself in a certain way, Nothing is more important. People say, Mom, it's mad at me. Sometimes they say, well, you can't run over people. I run over anybody if they stop me from doing what I promised. If you don't do what you promised, why do you do anything? And we've delivered what we promised from day one. I mean,
Yep.
I think the people know that, and they still appreciate that here.
As a matter of fact, if you read the contract that people enter into when they come here, we meet every provision of that contract and exceed several.
Yes.
So we go above and beyond what we agreed to do.
Springmoor has been in operation and very, very successful for many years. So to each of you, residents enjoy the many services and the reduced responsibilities that they have living at Springmoor. What do you think is the single major strength in the services that's provided at Springmoor? I want each of you to answer that. So think about that. What's the major single strength that you find in Springmoor services?
I think the largest strength is the staff, the people who work here. Because like we said, they not only know how, but they want to do. And when you see them show up at memorial services, I think that says a lot. And I think then the residents have just been amazing. And I think maybe we didn't pick them, but we knew we were able to choose a lot of people to come who set the standard.
Well, a lot of smart people came here. A lot of them are smarter than we were. We didn't have no shortage of people that knew how to do things, did we?
That's right.
Do you remember them? I just remember so many people that really, they'd run big things before they got here, I mean.
And many of those people have taken leadership roles in the Springmoor Residents Association.
Oh, yeah.
And have not only the staff, which I think is single biggest thing likewise, that staff has been built, they enjoy working there. We still have here today several people who came to work here when the doors opened. That says a lot. Now,
Mason remembers well too, don't you, Mason? We built it with the people in mind. And we wanted to look right at this, but we built it. We had a pool table, we had this. You remember how you built it?
Yep. It was easy to access everything. It
Yeah.
was all under one roof.
It really was.
Lots of small parlors and meeting places and places people get together. And I think Joe Ellen's right. Marshall may live here. My mom still lives here. So that's my perspective on it. And it's the staff and the dedication to the people that are here is remarkable. And on all levels, whether it's the housekeeper or the doctor or anybody you interface with, the insurance department
And
that
we
takes
have
care
some
of all
second
the...
generations now too.
Yeah.
I think that's interesting.
a number of second generation people. And beyond the staff, that first. Close second is in the program of Springmoor and all the reduced responsibility is the medical and health care program. It's the strongest draw and provides invaluable service to the folks who live here. Recently, I had a lady approach me who said, well, you came to live here, so I knew then I'd made the right decision. and that's proof of the pudding. You know, we certainly would not have lived here if there were any misgivings or reservations about the place. It's all it represents itself to be.
Yeah, I think Mason, I see another thing too. My mom was here, and Mason's mother is still here. And you're looking at it from the other side that way. Mm-hmm. And then my aunt was here, and I know what it meant to me and to my family. So that's something you can't compare.
Well, I'll talk a few minutes about some operational issues. So, Marshall, I'm kind of going to head these directly to you since you were operating it in the early years. Why does Springmoor have 3 different life care plans?
Well, in studying the literature and looking at other life care communities, the few that existed then, we felt that people ought to have some choice. And so we felt that some people would put a lot of emphasis on, if I put up this entry money, what happens then? So you have an option where if they put up the entry money with that plan, they can get all of it back. They put up more money to do that. So the estate would get all of that entry fee back. The second is some people who might not be able to quite afford that but wanted something to move to their estate. We had a plan that 50% of the equity money, that is the entry money, would amortize over 2 years, and 50% would not amortize and would be returned to the estate. And then for those folks where either this was not important or they felt they could do better investing the money otherwise, we had a plan that the entry fee would amortize over the first 25 months. And that gave people a choice. And they could pick whatever they choose according to their own priorities and financial ability and so on. Then in service, though, irrespective of which plan they chose, the service and the monthly fees were the same for each of the three plans. The monthly fees vary, however, depending on the type of unit you select to live in. The houses being the more costly, alcove apartments being the less costly.
Well, you know, the thing I remember, and it's still that way, our residents are our best salesmen. The residents can help you create more people coming than anything else. Residents, you take Al, they invite people out here to eat. They do lots of things, man. They're proud of what we have. They want their friends to see it. How many, I don't know what percentage of the sales are from residents, but it's a high part, you know, because they tell people how great it is, you know. And people want to go somewhere, you know, that people already like and know what it's like. And our residents seem to be very happy to me.
The residents are very happy, and you mentioned Al. Just for the record, to clarify, that's Albert Calloway, who's also Esquire, who's also on our board of directors and has been just an invaluable asset to Springmoor through the years.
And all the money on the nonprofit.
Oh, the endowment fund.
Yeah, you gonna get to that, or
I am going to get to that. But
Well,
just-
wait on
We'll
him.
wait.
Just
We'll wait
before
for.
we get there, Marshall, tell me a little bit. Springmoor enjoys excellent reputation with all the services, good food service, particularly special diets that we meet the needs of, premium meals. Is all the food service staff Springmoor employees, and how has this reputation in food service been achieved all this time?
Well, first of all, Springmoor has a contract for the management of the food service program, and the contractor provides the senior managers. All of the employees are employees of Springmoor, supervised by the senior managers. We had the great fortune many, many years ago of getting a food service director, Shirlene Phillips, who has done just an outstanding job in managing
she's
the
from
place.
mountains, you know. They're just smarter than other people, you know.
Well, whatever you say.
I think she walks on water.
But-
I tell you what I think.
There are just a few people around here, Shirlene among them, that if you had the ability to clone for the future, it would be a thing you'd do in an instant. She has trained, she has managed, she has responded to changing needs. For example, in recent years, Springmoor added a cafe. She manages it. They've expanded into a commendable, just an outstanding catering service. They provide that for residents. If a resident wants to have a party, they'll provide it all, and they do it first class. They meet all the special diets. Food service is just outstanding. Equal to that, our health care is outstanding, where the physicians are here to see the patients, the nurses are caring. If a resident needs a nurse at 3 in the morning, a nurse will be there in 5 or 10 minutes, just the length of time it takes. The nurse comes in carrying a suitcase, dragging the suitcase that has basically a little hospital in it, and she can meet most any need in the world. The nursing staff is superior. We only have not only primary care physicians and physician assistants, but we have specialists like dermatologists and ophthalmologists and others who come here as well. But again, the residents can use these, and overwhelmingly the residents do use this source of medical care. However, if they choose to, they can continue their own medical care with outside physicians, and Springmoor provides the transportation. So convenience is everything.
Wonderful. In the dementia area you mentioned a few moments ago, specialized dementia area, we know it's the C Wing, named after Jim C., longtime president of the board, and Judd mentioned him earlier. Tell us, how was the program for the C Wing, this irreversible dementia, Alzheimer's type persons, how was it developed, and how does it serve the residents of Springmoor?
Well, first of all, it was developed and responsive to a need. It was not part of the initial plan. We visited other life care communities, other nursing homes, places that specialize in that. We studied the literature. We just gathered all the knowledge we could. Then we provided specialized training to the staff who staff that unit so that they can provide the different needs. And the level of cognitive ability of these people range tremendously, from none to on again, off again. Residents stay into their apartments when they have a spouse, as long as the spouse chooses to care for the spouse, and so long as we think everything is being met properly. Then the residents transferred to this special care unit.
So, Marshall, does Springmoor accept Medicaid patients?
Springmoor does not accept Medicaid patients. This is an organization where people who can afford life care come here. It's not subsidized by government in any form.
What happens if a resident outlives their resources while they're here at Springmoor? Are they required to leave if they can't pay their fee any longer?
Well, first of all, there's a review committee who approves the resident, the coming to live here of residents, and that committee examines the physical health, the financial ability, and so on. When a person comes here, if they outlive their resources and do not dispose of their resources through any unusual way, then Springmoor does have provision to subsidize that resident. If a resident is accepted, they're never terminated.
Judge Allen, just as an aside to that, was that important to you from an initial point of view of starting Springmoor, having that type of concept?
Well, we weren't going to throw anybody out. I mean, they don't come out here to be thrown out. I mean, we were going to take care of who we told we'd take care of. When they come here, most people come here to think that's where they're going to live, for a long time. And we've even been told that we took such good care of them, we extended the life expectancy. And I don't know how you prove that, but I would say that's probably right. But we're going to do whatever it takes to make sure that the people that come here get what they were promised.
If an applicant's resources are marginal, do you accept guarantors, Marshall, to assume any financial responsibility if that person does outlive their resources?
If a person's finances are marginal, Springmoor does accept people to assign as co-signers guarantors, but they have to be financially able, not just anyone. The guarantor has got to be financially able to back up if the resident cannot pay their way. Now, the other thing that I'm particularly pleased with is of the people who have been subsidized, and there have been some, that word is very confidential and has never leaked out as to who's subsidized and who's not. You can live next door to someone who's being subsidized and you never know the difference. The services remain the same. It's a confidential transaction that's kept very, very quiet and tight.
So there's a separate nonprofit organization known as the Springmoor Endowment Fund that helps, I guess, with this. Tell us a little bit about that, how it gets funded, and what the funds are used for out of that endowment fund.
Well, the endowment fund was set up years ago as a separate nonprofit corporation. It has raised money through the years in a variety of means. One of the residents, Bob Cook, has been a principal in fundraising and overseeing and has done so very wisely. The money is invested. The endowment fund has a board of directors that oversees the investment of the money, and that has worked very well. The fund has no administrative expense. The developers of Springmoor paid all of the administrative expenses for that fund.
And still do.
And still do, and will continue to. So every dime that's donated is reserved for the use of folks who give out of their resources.
And the income to that fund comes from donations primarily?
The income to that fund comes a combination of donations. At times there have been fund matching motivations. There have been a variety of marketing ways to raise money, and now the fund is substantial and is going to be able to provide and has provided for those who happen to outlive their resources.
Good. Do you know how much money's in the fund now?
I think about $4 million.
Wonderful. Wonderful. There's also another separate nonprofit organization that's known as the Springmoor Residents Association. Tell us a little bit about that. Do all residents belong to that association? Do they pay fees? What does it do?
That is a separate nonprofit corporation. We felt from the beginning that the residents should have an active voice in what's going on here. So the association has various committees. They have a management advisory committee who advises management, gives them the resident perspective on management decisions. There's a healthcare committee, food service, and basically a committee for every walk of life at Springmoor. The committee interacts with that department and whichever department and provides advice and lets them know things that they think need to be done to alter, improve, or modify. And it's a very, very effective interface of staff and residents.
And do all residents belong to that automatically?
A resident
They
is,
pay a fee?
is automatically a member. There are no fees. The Resident Association actually has no funds. If they have expenses, then the expenses must be underwritten by Springmoor, the nonprofit corporation.
Judge Joellen, you've done a beautiful job in making changes to Springmoor over the years as time has passed. Put new entrances, we've refurbished apartments, new fixtures, new furniture. How important is all that to you?
Well, Mason knows more about it than we do almost. Mason thinks it's real important, don't you, Mason?
I think it's critical, absolutely, and there's a lot going on that front. We've redone the dining room, added the springs, put the new cafe in, expanded the
Fixing to build a new swimming pools and stuff, and
whole wellness centers.
cooperation
all
with
drawing
wellness.
boards. The Clayton Wing was an example of that.
Yeah, yeah.
That, it's ongoing all the time and critical to having this place always be on the cutting edge and be what the current market is looking for you.
Well, and we have a wonderful history, and we're certainly looking forward to future. Marshall, are we doing anything to capture this history and provide a record of all this for the future?
The Residents Association recently established an archives committee, which will attempt to document in a computer system all the events that have transpired of significance up to the present and provide for the future recording of significant events over time. As a matter of fact, this video recording will become a part of that archive system.
Wonderful. Joellen, we know that behind every successful man is a more successful female. And we know what role you have played at Springmoor in making it a success. But can you tell us about your continuing role at Springmoor during all these years from the beginning up until probably yesterday when you probably are still hanging pictures here at Springmoor? Can you tell us all about that? And we know you gave many, many, many hours of your time. Can you share your thoughts with us about your continuing role and how it's been?
My thought is I've had the best job here. I get to go spend the money and try to make it look pretty. And I've been accused of being a little tight sometimes, but I think it's important, you know. And I think from the very first, the thing I remember when we started in East Apartments, if you remember that carpet, it was mud colored. That was the best thing we could do at that time because we grew from there. And now we've redone it a couple of times since then. And then too, we're sitting today in chairs that Archie Blanchard gave us. Some of the residents have shared with us, and a lot of times people have offered things we couldn't accept, we didn't need. I remember one time I was buying furniture, and I counted up 101 sofas. And this is a big place. One day I remember we hung 40 pictures. I said, Marshall, how did you like my pictures? He said, what pictures? They just disappeared in the wall because there are a lot of walls here. But it's been fun, and people seem to have appreciated it. And I think even from the beginning, when it was just half done, they would be watching, and there's a little excitement with it. And I think as far as the future, they tell me, my son David tells me, that we've got to go more contemporary. We all sort of like traditional. But he said the children now are making decisions for the seniors. I'm not sure that that's true, but to some extent we do have to stay very updated, contemporary, new, fresh, whatever that is. And I think there's sort of been a change over time, and we'll keep trying to do that.
How many miles do you think you have driven picking up furniture and buying furniture and delivering to Springmoor?
I don't know. I remember driving a van and getting stuck out here, and they got a bulldozer to push me out one time. So that was.
Can you share with us how you hang pictures?
with 2 nails.
And a shoe.
That's right, most of them, yeah.
So we know you spent many, many hours out here, and,
That's the
and the
best
beauty
part.
of Springmoor is in your hands. On the interior, it is absolutely beautiful, and you've done a tremendous job with that. And
Well, one good thing now, we have the woodworking shop, and the men who work there have helped us. If we need to repair benches and they can, if something needs to be restained, they've been very helpful. And they tell me what needs work. So a lot of times the tables will get a little unbalanced, and they can do all that. And then if, like the drapery in here, I especially like, and Barry Walker's drapery in Durham have done all the drapery in the whole place.
Since the beginning.
Yes, and Dexter Furniture has made upholstered things, not all of them, but most of them, and they've been so helpful. And they'll come out and pick it out, and they made my job fun.
how about your carpet people?
That's exactly right. Brentwood Carpet's been with us from the first, and I think they've done a great job too. And they are proud of it. They will show people. They'll ask me if they can show this carpet they put in. I think that's a good thing.
Tell me just a little bit about how many phone calls and/or letters you may have received at home from residents about Springmoor.
Good and
I didn't
bad.
feel that is. 6 and 9 on my phone. I ain't know about her phone.
No, but people have been appreciative. But then people are aware that things have to be updated, and we have a committee, and it's the Decorating Refurbishing Committee, and Al Calloway's wife is one of our good members, and they have a continuing leadership in there, and they're the eyes of the place. And if a picture falls or some glass is broken, they can let me know. One person could never see everything. So we've been lucky to have people who live here who care about it.
Great.
If they really got a complaint, they'll say, well, new people might not want to see that.
Springmoor has remained on the cutting edge in the physical community, as well as the services and the staffing that we've talked about today. What plans are on the horizon for future changes at Springmoor?
Well, we're always making some changes or adding on or making something look better. I guess we've added a new entrance. We've redone both dining halls more than once to keep them up to date. We've made cafes on both sides, so we got one here and building one on the other side. We have a pool here, part of the wellness program. We're going to build a lap pool and another pool, probably a saltwater pool, aren't you, Mason?
That's what we're hoping to do.
You sort of don't tell a little bit about what you're going to add over there just real soon, right?
Yeah, it's laid out.
You're going to
Plans
fix a
drawn,
place for
so
people to go watch movies, pop popcorn.
A Springs type facility over there
That's
as well.
right.
There'll be exercise area, machines and things we don't have now, and more of them.
We've
Director
always
will
had
have an
an
office over there.
Yeah.
So our program now is sort of scattered around the campus in
That's
lots of
right.
small locations, and this will provide a focus for a variety of activities
Well-
in one area, plus the pool, which will be a great.
We've always had a wellness program
Yeah.
from the very start. How can you have a better wellness program than a doctor here or a nurse? I mean, not a doctor or PA here about every day, all the time. I mean, that's the first start you have. Not many people can say that about what they have. And I'm so proud of it. Our doctor is proud. I see Dr. Edmondson quite often. They're very proud of it. So we're going to make sure as things change. The newer generation changes things. Things change, What I thought was important, just pick a TV program to watch with all my grandkids there. Maybe we'd agree on 1 out of 25 if it was a ball game, and the rest of them we don't agree on. So people are changing a whole lot. And so people's needs are changing some. And wellness is not only that, but it's a big deal now. Everybody wants to know what's your wellness program. Well, that's a word. Wellness seems to be a magic word. I guess it includes everything that you can include now, don't you, Marshall?
Yeah, yeah. We've had many forms of wellness built in all along, but now they have a more formal wellness program. They've labeled it Pathways, and a great deal of energy is being devoted to that, and the staff is very, very enthused about it, and residents are becoming very enthused.
I think the biggest thing is we have just made some improvements to make an entrance prettier, or to make a state-of-the-art room or a great-looking field with big columns and all. We should have made it a lot prettier. We're really prettier than we were. I mean, we've made it prettier than it used to be. But we've also taken care of a lot of other things. We've taken care of heating, air conditioning, bigger, better, and changing it. We've taken care of utility rooms.
Redoing all the kitchens.
Redoing all the kitchens. I mean, we were really taking it serious to cover the whole agenda. And I don't see any change in that anytime soon. I can't imagine well, that's going to be changed. Anybody that's younger here, Basin's a little bit younger, not a lot, but a little bit. And Cal maybe a little bit younger than that. And then Marshall, we hope somebody does something worthwhile, don't we, Marshall? And
well, I think the convenience things too, like the bank and the beauty shop, all those make it nicer for people.
Yeah.
Okay,
we're a little community.
Let me ask you one last question. To each of you, what do you think Springmoor's major challenges are today and in the tomorrows? There's certainly different. Some challenges are today. We've touched on some of those. But what about the tomorrows? What do we look for in the future in the Springmoor challenges?
First of all, will be the challenge of keeping the quality staff we now have. That will take continuing effort over time. Second will be, as Judd has mentioned, to be responsive to changing needs as people perceive life care and to adapt to those changes. And then to keep our facilities new. They may be, the design of this place is not going to age. The original design, the brick, the arches, the whole picture, and the setting, maintaining the grounds and maintaining the trees will be perpetual, and that's a great thing. But we have to keep it in good working order, and to be on the cutting edge, you've got to keep everything up to par in the maintenance and the painting and the decorating and everything. And that it's an achievement, but it's a challenge. And we've been successful so far, and I believe with that continuing effort, it'll continue to be successful on the cutting edge.
Mason?
Well, you described it pretty well, but I think a big challenge from a physical plant perspective is what are these every day 10,000 of us age into the plus 60 group, and that group is going to have a different set of wants, as Judd and Joel and Marshall described pretty well. The kind of spaces they want to live in, how those spaces relate, what they look like will be different, and that's the real challenge. How do we take the spaces we have that are what they are and keep them attractive to this new market that is emerging? So I think we're going to do it well. It's got to be affordable, and it's got to be what they want. And I think fortunately we've got a great team still doing it, and it's happening. So I don't see that as unattainable, just a challenge we need to continue to address.
Well, I think we can promise people that we're going to be here. We're going to stay up to date. There's people younger than us that want it to continue to be good. We're not the last ones around. I got children, everybody has. So there's a lot of other people here who's going to carry it on, don't you think, Mark?
Absolutely, absolutely.
It's going to be something that would just happen today and gone tomorrow. We're going to have people here that are going to be sure to carry it on like it should be. And I think everybody here, I think you have, everybody has. The people that work here, David has, my son, and the guy runs a nursing home now. How could you find a guy more caring than that guy is? I mean,
and the chaplain too.
Yeah, the chaplains. Yeah.
Another thing is the wisdom of perpetuating the board of directors. They are key people to make everything. Make the policies, oversee things, and make sure that they continue to be what they have been and are.
Well, we've covered much of Springmoor's story from the earliest thoughts to where it is today, which is a vibrant, respected, and oftentimes imitated life care community, which is quite a compliment to you people. Springmoor's proven record of providing outstanding care to residents forms a very strong foundation for what we see in the future, as you've addressed already. Springmoor has also earned a reputation as a premier life care community and is committed to being a leader in this field in the future. So seated here today are the people who had the idea, who made this a reality, and as a development team, has proven how valuable they are to this project. They provided all the ingredients that guarantee a successful future as a life care retirement community. Thank you for joining us.